Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm Rebecca Negroracha, and I'm the manager of growth programs here at Endeavor Miami. And I'd like to welcome you to the Endeavor Masterclass series. Today is a very exciting day because we are launching this initiative that is designed for entrepreneurs looking to scale their businesses using expert advice from our industry experts. So today's session and the first of this series will be on hiring for scale. I'd like to thank our sponsor, Dell Technologies, for making this session possible. So I'd like to welcome Lucas Chayo Del Pino, head of Dell for Startups at Dell Technologies, to the stage to join me.
Thank you, Rebecca. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Lucas Chaya. I lead the Dell for Startups team at Dell Technologies. And we are very excited to sponsor this series of masterclasses since I know that they are a great resource that will add value to entrepreneurs and founders and startups. And this is in line with our goal to foster and support entrepreneurship in general. So at Dell for Startups, we are a team dedicated to helping early stage startups scale up with their technology. So if you want to learn more, you can visit dell.com/startups or reach out to us at startups@dell.com. And yeah, I just want to welcome everyone and thank the Endeavor team for organizing this and the future series of masterclasses. And I'm pretty sure we'll learn great things from Melissa today. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Lucas. I'm also very excited for today. So I'd like to introduce everyone to the expert that will be leading this masterclass, Melissa Davis. Hey, Melissa.
Hi.
So
Nice.
Nice to see you. Thank you for joining us. I'm going to briefly introduce you and then we're going to get started. So, everyone, Melissa is the founder of Elevate Hire Solutions, which is a technology staffing firm which was founded in 2012. And today she's known for her excellence in finding the right talent for some of the world's fastest growing technology startups and high growth organizations, helping them to transform their success trajectory. So, Melissa is the recipient of multiple accolades, including recognition on the Inc. 5000 link, voted Best of Georgia 2021, and is a certified women owned organization. She also serves her community. She has been a member of the Entrepreneurs Organization for 8 years now and has held a board seat for the Atlanta Technology Association Blockchain Society, as well as a recruiting member for Venture Atlanta, and serves as a mentor for startups at the Atlanta Tech Village. So, welcome, Melissa.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Well, let's get this party started.
So while you get set up, I just want to share a message with the audience. So if you guys have any questions, please share them in the comment box, and we're going to make sure Melissa gets to them before the end of the session. I can see everything that you post, so just make sure to share them with us. So Melissa, whenever you're ready, we'll just pass it on to you.
Sec. Okay. Sharing now. And then I'm going to go here and start. Oh,
perfect.
Is this good?
Now it's not in presentation mode anymore, but...
Oh, sorry. I'm going to stop sharing and share. With this. Sorry, guys.
You're good. This technology is always a struggle, so.
I know, right? Okay, let's see. Am I sharing now?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Now it's in the process, yeah.
Perfect. And I will get this going. Alrighty. Now is the sharing? Sorry for the tech.
I see you sharing screen, but not presentation mode.
Presentation mode. Do you know
go
how
back?
to get into?
Yeah, go back to the slides.
Okay, to the slides. Yeah.
And then
like this?
Perfect.
Okay,
The only thing I was going to ask you is if you can click on the hide that you see there on the box of StreamYard.
Hide, yep. Okay, Perfect.
No, now you're not full
Oh, that
screening
was.
it anymore. Yeah. You gotta
I'm
keep
so
full
sorry,
screen.
guys. Okay, there we
Perfect. There we go. We're ready.
Alrighty. So now that we got all that taken care of, my name is Melissa, as she introduced. Sorry, I am more technical than this, but you never know. Today, I want to talk about winning the talent war and hiring for scale, especially in the year 2022 and beyond. Um, she just gave a really great bio about me, but what I want you to realize is I'm a business owner as well. I've scaled, I've hired, I've fired. I've done it wrong, I've done it right, I've done everything in between, but I've also seen it across the years. I have 15 years of experience being a recruiter, and I have helped grow multiple high-tech growth startups, placing over 1,500 candidates in over 200 companies. And I've helped grow a few unicorns, Calendly, SalesLoft, Smart, and Greenlight. So it's been a really fun journey. And it's been a interesting couple years in this journey as well. So why is hiring so difficult right now? I think everybody on this call most likely has experienced some issues or some struggle hiring, especially now. And there's a couple reasons. So, today what I'm really going to go over is what's the landscape we're playing in, um, what that looks like, how we can, what we can do differently, and how we can build out a true, engaging talent acquisition solution. So, the Great Resignation. What does that mean? We all hear it, we all know it, right? 3.8 million people quit their jobs in April 2021. We know this, as part of a pandemic, etc. Of those, 38% retired. So that's almost 40% of the marketplace of baby boomers that left the market altogether. And then we had 1.3 million women that left the marketplace as well, for lack of access to affordable childcare. And so those are all pretty significant of what we're dealing with the lay of the market conditions. And it changed quick, and it's changing again, and we'll talk about that. But this isn't only, the Great Resignation certainly hurt a lot of industries, not all, and it certainly hurt tech, but not as much. But we feel it across the board. And so another thing that's going on that not a lot of people are totally privy to is the global venture dollar. Their volume from 2012 to 2021 was record-breaking deals. Hopefully that's why, some of you startups are here today, is because you got funding, you're looking to scale, you're looking to hire. But significant. As you can see, the amount of funding was far significant than what we have experienced in over a decade, 10 times the amount. That's not a small thing. Simply put it, we don't have enough talent to go around. We just don't. So with the pandemic hitting kind of the crisis and people retiring and leaving the marketplace and displacement of women, etc., and then the uptake of startups and opportunity in all companies, there just isn't. There's not enough talent to go around. So I wanted to talk about, what does hiring for scale really mean? To me, it means hiring for potential versus the perfect fit. And I know a lot of people hate to hear that, especially tech startups who really just want to hire the best of the best in the perfect fit. And I get that. In a perfect world, we all want that. But when I say hire for potential, I'm really talking, you don't have to sacrifice on your quality, but you do have to realize that there isn't enough talent to go around. So how can you continue to grow your company, be able to get and achieve the goals that you need to achieve with a very sort of lean, thin talent pool? When looking for top skills, definitely think about You can sacrifice on perfect fit from like a hard skill standpoint because you can always teach those. So sort of keep that in mind as you're looking to scale. And I cannot have a conversation like this with y'all without first kind of talking a little bit about the difference in talent. We are truly in a generation where there is so many different generations in the workplace right now, and they're so incredibly different. And why so? The Zennials, the Gen Ys, and the Gen Zs are all very different and have come up really fast and furious. So let's kind of talk through this, because why this is critical when thinking about hiring is you have to understand who your marketplace is, who your talent is, what's important to them. What's important to a baby boomer is very different than what's important to a Gen Z. And if you're a baby boomer or Gen X manager or leader, you have to understand that the way you see the world is different than how they see the world. So I'll just quickly kind of go over these sort of stereotypes, and they're in generalizations. But baby boomers were very hardworking. It was all about work for them. They're essentially the workaholics. So then Generation X came along, which I like to think I'm in Generation X, is we were like, okay, we don't want to work that hard. We're going to have work-life integration, and we're high throughput, quite like our boomers, but we're understanding that we have to juggle both home and work, because that was also the big introduction to both people in the home being in the workplace. So there was no choice but to kind of create that work-life balance. Then we go to the Zennials. They're kind of the next on the list. And for them, they're very confident, they're team players, they're coachable, but they can be a little bit cynical, and they're not as they can be team players, but they're not as complacent as Generation X or boomers. And Generation Y is what, the Xennials, Generation Y and Z are all millennials, but Generation Z or Y is kind of like the core group. And the one thing we have to realize is this is our biggest demographic in the workplace today. I think they make like 75% of the workplace. So we have to really understand what matters to them when it comes to hiring. They get the stereotype entitled and lazy, but they're really not. What they've done is they're really great independent workers. They're the generation that's very concerned with ethics and social responsibility. And they've grown up with all the tools and accessibility around them. So it's not that they're lazy. They grew up with a tablet in their hand and Uber Eats at their door. And they didn't have, if they needed to go somewhere, they could grab a lift. When I was growing up, there was no lift to just hop into. So I don't think it's lazy. I think it was just accessibility and exposure that they had. And then Gen Z, that's the one coming up now, and they are the most technology advanced, and they're all the natural entrepreneurs. 72% want to start their own business. So lots of autonomy, lots of freedom to think for themselves. So that kind of gives you an understanding of each generation and how you're going to attract talent given what realm they're in. And I know it's the hardest thing, because sometimes we want everybody to be like ourselves, or why can't they work like us? But we have to think through that. And we also have to think through it when you're developing and creating a team, and how that sort of interplays within a team dynamic. Next is, so what's your plan? So now we know the landscape. We sort of understand what's going on from an economic and, growth standpoint. Now we understand the personalities that are in the pool of the talent pool. So now we have to think about what's your plan to scale. And so I think I wanted to spend a little bit of time kind of talking a little bit in your jargon versus my jargon, which is creating a talent acquisition strategy just as strong as creating your customer acquisition strategy, because gone is the day of like you would have a product, you'd look for product market fit, then you'd build out your customer acquisition plan, right? And staffing and recruiting was always there, but not just as focused, because it's not your immediate money maker. It's, you don't have all these advancements. When you first get started, you have a pool of, your buddies or friends, but you kind of, once you start developing, that's when you would think about your talent acquisition team. However, in today's market, and I think even for the foreseeable future, we're going to have to really start focusing on what that looks like. And I think you have to they're kind of side by side equally important, because you cannot have growth without team members, right? It's just a fact. So instead of creating your sales talent book or your sales playbook, you need to create your talent playbook. And I thought it'd be just funny to do company value proposition equals talent value proposition, ideal customer profile equals job description profile, buyer persona, you have talent persona, competitive analysis is company brand analysis, prospecting equals sourcing, demoing equals screening, qualifying equals interviewing, and negotiating is extending offers. So as you can see, they're very parallel, and you spend so much time building out your sales playbook. You really need to think through building out your talent playbook. And then, of course, onboarding and closing. Alrighty. So let's start with company value proposition versus talent value proposition. So the talent proposition is, why would a happily employed person leave their job to work for you? It's really no longer about you. It is all about them. Right now, if you're hiring, we have all-time historic low unemployment rates for everything across the board. Then you look at technology and it's like 0.0 unemployment. There really isn't anybody unemployed in what we do. Now I know, and I realize, this is a startup community and you'll be hiring multiple roles, but the bulk of your hiring is technology in the beginning. So you have to think, and you have to know, all of them are going to be gainfully employed. They're happy, they're employed. There's not one out of the 10 years I've built Elevate, pretty much all of our candidates are passively looking. So you have to think like them. And it's not what's in it for you, it's really what's in it for them. What talent is looking for today. So, money and benefits, as always, well-being initiatives, autonomy and flexibility. So yes, there's all the same benefits that you would traditionally always historically have. You would always have, money, benefits, equity, PTO, all of that is important. But I wanted to highlight these 3 important ones. So Gallup just did a survey. This was a recent survey. 64 responded that they wanted significant increase in benefits or income. And the reason why I highlight benefits is, now that we've gone through a massive pandemic and so much happened, it really matters. Like, people have realized how much benefits and how much our health matters. So that's a critical one to be thinking about in the packages that you're giving. Another one that's fairly new is a well-being initiative to combat burnout and mental stress. So all of us have been affected by the pandemic, by the growth surges, by what's going on in the economy. So it's caused a lot of stress for some people. And then burnout, with so much opportunity. You have so much movement in companies. You have people losing candidates. You have people, their employees getting poached all the time. You have people leaving to start their own businesses. You have a lot of activity going on. And I think all of us can say we've been running fairly lean for a while. Now we went from the Great Resignation, and now we might be going into sort of a downwind. And so with that, there's pluses and minuses, but a minus is still running too lean as a team. And so we have to be really cautious and cognizant about burnout. Lately, when we're talking to candidates about why they're, looking for a job, it's burnout. We're hearing that a lot. So you have to put some well-being initiatives in there. And then autonomy and flexibility. According to LinkedIn, remote listings were up 337%. So if you're not offering that, you truly are falling, you're not being the most attractive employer in town. And then D&I initiatives, those are critical. It's really critical for the younger generation, the Zennials, the Millennials, the Gen Zs. It's important. It's meaningful to them. So if you want to attract top talent and you want to be able to scale, and especially scale the young ones, you must focus on that. What technologists want. So we have the general population, but what technologists really want is they want a hard problem to solve, something interesting to work on. They want coworkers and leaders that they can learn from. They want to contribute to open source projects. They like cool missions, and they want a culture they fit in. And generally that culture is casual and flexible. And I know nowadays pretty much everybody is, but one thing I always noticed sort of growing is a lot of developers do not like this picture. I know we went like the whole open floor plan, etc. But you got to remember, developers are very much in their cerebral brain. They're in their left brain. They're analytical. They're like, what they're working on is very focused. So it's really hard if you pack them in a room or have them in this big open space and it's noisy and loud. Some developers are okay with that, but majority are not. So be mindful, and you can have other companies and teammates being salespeople love this, marketing people love this, recruiters love this. Developers don't love this so much. So when you're fighting for top talent, make sure you're creating an ecosystem that works for them. But I'm telling you right now, above all, developers still just want remote and hybrid. And I know, and I understand your pain, especially as a startup, because you need that collaboration and you want to be together and you want to gel and you're forming your team. And I get it. I totally get it. But we have to figure out how we can do that in a more hybrid environment, because it is very challenging to get the top talent, because you're not competing. You no longer are competing against like Miami or just Atlanta or just New York. We're competing against the globe. And with remote, anybody can work for anybody anywhere. So it has added this whole layer and complexity to the hiring process. Ideal customer profile equals ideal job description. We all know how to make job descriptions, but what I really want to touch base on is a couple things. Always optimize for job title. I see way too many times that people really look for, they kind of have their own homegrown title. You don't really want to do that when you're attracting people because it confuses the market. So try to optimize the title for what's sort of out there in the marketplace. Another thing is, you want to focus on your brand identity and not your company summary. The difference, brand identity talks about what your purpose, what you exist for, what you believe in. Company summary is what you do. So kind of think that Simon Sinek, start with the why, the how, the who, far more than just, we make widgets and do X. But the key and how you're going to differentiate yourself on a job description is definitely listing out all the things that are most critical and important to them. What they're going to own, what they're going to teach, what they're going to learn, and what they're going to improve. That's really speaking their language, and it's speaking to them, and they can relate. Again, it's storytelling. Just like marketing and branding for your own company is storytelling, talent acquisition is storytelling too. And the last thing I want to touch on with job descriptions is there's pros and cons to putting salary ranges on a job description. Some companies you can get away with it. Some companies it doesn't make sense. Some companies are ultra transparent. Some companies are not. But I'm going to tell you, it is what candidates want to see. And the reason they want to see it is nobody wants to waste their time. Is it at their level? Is it going to pay within their range? That's always the biggest question. When people are reaching out to people for a job, the number one question is money, because that's one of the most critical things about making a job change or accepting a job. So there's been study after study have found if you put a starting range or a range, you will receive more candidates that apply because they have a better understanding of what they're signing up for. However, I know some companies just can't operate in that way. So neither here or there, but I wanted to put out there just in case. Buyer persona. We have a buyer persona. You all have a buyer persona for your company. And if you don't, and if you're still really early stages, you will have a buyer persona. What we now need to have is a talent persona. You need to be thinking about who is the ideal candidate talent for your company. What do they look like? Where do they hang out? What is their personality? What motivates them? What technology do they use? What environment? All of those things are really critical when thinking about talent personas and how you're going to build out your team. And remember, what comes even more critical with this is all the different demographics within talent, teams these days. All right. Competitor analysis versus company branding analysis. People make decisions on perception. It's all about how you're perceived. That's really, really critical. So when you're thinking about branding analysis, so think about when you're doing competitive analysis, you're looking at what's the competitive landscape, who's doing what we do, how can we do it better, what's our differentiators. It's the exact same for building out your brand of why people would want to work for you. So use your resources. Your LinkedIn should be all about your brand. Your Instagram, most companies don't use Instagram for business. If you do, that's great. But if it's not, utilize it for company creation and culture creation so people can go out and check out what your culture's like. Have your employees evangelize for you, have them all have up-to-date LinkedIns and make sure they have the hiring logo on it, because it's like that network effect. You don't get what you don't ask for. And so have everybody involved and make sure your brand, the look and feel is sort of out there for everyone to see how you're coming across. So how are you perceived? Be asking yourself that. How are we all doing, guys? Pause for a minute. Is there any questions at all? We're good? Alrighty. Prospecting and sourcing. So we all go prospect clients, and just like we're going to source for talent. Here's the top 10 places for sourcing. We have employee referrals are always, always, always going to be number one. Good people know good people. There's a sense of loyalty there. There's a sense of commitment. And then board members and VCs, they have a vested interest in your success. And so sometimes you just forget to ask. They want to help, they want to support, but sometimes you forget to ask. Always be asking. I think the key to sourcing is always be asking, like talking, asking, everywhere and anywhere you go, even to a friend or a neighbor. You never know who somebody knows. Reference checks are so underutilized, but so beneficial. Not only are you checking references on a person that you're looking to hire, but you also want to be checking on them as a reference. How did they grow their team? Just get curious. How have they built up their talent? Do they know of anybody possibly that's not good for them that could be right for you? So really utilize that reference check. Then there's all the tried and true LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Angels List, GitHub, Dribble. Lots of great places. Obviously, it takes a lot of digging, but if you have a great brand analysis and you have a great brand and presence in those environments, you will attract more. So be mindful of that. And then there's all kinds of sourcing platforms out there. Talent acquisition has been disrupted in many different ways on AI platform sourcing. So there's plenty of those out there. You know, just try ones that may work for you. Personal blogs are really important too. You'll be there's all kinds of ways of being able to find talent other than the traditional norm. I put job posting last because I don't know about you, but I own, as a recruiting company, I own no job boards because none of my candidates are looking for jobs or put themselves on job boards. It doesn't work for us. It yields us nothing. It does work better for companies because a candidate is more apt to apply to a company. However, you're still not going to get a ton of traction on like a job posting in this market because there's not enough talent looking. You really have to go after passive talent. And then, sourcing is you have to be creative and you have to be marketing, marketing, marketing. It is everything, I think to some degree, all of us businesses have to become marketing machines, whether it's to upstaff our team or to sell our product. It all comes down to marketing. So keep that in mind. Demoing equals screening. So I wanted to take a little bit of time to talk about this. Is the objective on a screen is to assess their needs, not yours. You did hear me correctly. Their needs, not yours. Again, you're the one that needs them. They don't need you, right? So gone are the days of tell me why I should work here, why I should hire you. It's not about candidates proving themselves to you anymore. It's about you enticing them, getting them excited about you and what you have to offer. And if you keep these things in mind, what you have, they don't have. What they have, you need, and what they can gain from you. Those are really critical things when thinking about screening talent. You'll quickly go through, do they just in general have the tech skills that you need? But you really, truly, truly, truly need to be thinking about what would make them a gainfully employed person come here. And the thing about startups, in all small business founders, we all believe our company's the best. Everybody believes that they're the best. So you can't rely on the fact that you have a killer product, great runway, amazing funding, all the things that would traditionally attract talent is not necessarily what attracts talent today in this market. They really want to understand how they fit into your purpose, how they fit into your ecosystem. And so when screening, you need to, I tell my team, it's like you need to marry them before you date. And that sounds counterintuitive, but you need to make them feel the love up front deeply and then keep taking them through the interview process. Because if you wait and show the love at the end, they're most likely not going to have felt it. And they most likely would take another opportunity with a company that did give them that love from the beginning. Screening pitfalls. I am going to just touch base on this just a little bit, but I think it's very easy for people to judge a book by a cover. And we know that saying, it's never good. But sometimes as humans, we do jump to conclusions when reading over a resume. Scientifically, it's been proven that it takes 17 seconds to read a resume. And we make very quick biased decisions and jump to conclusions with them. But you have to remember, in this market, you have to slow down a little bit and kind of dig in. Technologists in general write horrible resumes. Couple reasons. Some, they don't, it doesn't, it's a afterthought for them. Two, a lot of developers don't even believe in resumes anymore. So they spin one up really quickly and they're not so mindful of it. So just keep that in mind, that sometimes developers just don't write good resumes. Job tenure. I do want to hit a couple of these. Job tenure. Sometimes people have a really, really, really good reason for the hops that they made. Also, if we're thinking about the future of the work, and millennials make 75% of the workforce, millennials, their average staying is 2.5 years. So every 2 years or so, they're probably going to make a move. So you have to be mindful about job tenure. It's different today than it was back then. Don't see industry experience. That might be a blessing. Sometimes we get so narrow-minded in our area of expertise that somebody coming with fresh eyes and a fresh perspective might be the winning ticket to your product. You don't see tech in the resume. Like I said, that goes back to just writing horrible, horrible resumes, and they just don't think through how somebody would want to read it. And no degree. This one, some in 15 years and placing thousands of candidates, some of my best developers ever were ones that were complete self-taught hobbyists that tinkered their whole life. The gaming, they've taken things apart, they were just curious, they're passionate. Those are the real developers that tend to be some of the best developers, because it's just in their blood. It's how they're wired. And oftentimes, one of my best technologists, he aced every test at Georgia Tech, but almost failed because he never went to class, he never partook. But he was just genius, and he was bored, so he never went. And I think he was just shy from getting the degree there. And so you just, again, you can't, and I know that's a small percent, but you just can't always jump to conclusions. Qualifying equals interviewing. So what I'd like to say about the interviewing piece is you're going to have different stages and steps, but I really think if you want to have success, you have to think about interviewing as a very systematic, formulaic, repetitive process. Why? Because you want to be able to compare candidates. And what I've seen go wrong is so many people not do a systematic process that's really, they leave it to reactionary and emotional decision making. And I think we all know reactionary and emotional decision making doesn't serve anybody well. So you want to create a system. You want to create a scorecard, a ranking system, a weighting system, non-negotiables, where you can stretch, where you can teach, lean into the soft skills. One thing you have to sort of think through is, in this market, in the future, in the near-term future, there will be a compromise. And where's the compromise going to be? And you want to kind of get ahead of those compromises to make wiser decisions. You don't want to be making them on the fly. You want to sit down as a group that's going to be interviewing and be like, okay, what's the absolute musts? Where are the areas we can stretch? And if they don't have this, what do they need to have? Have all of that ahead of time. who's interviewing really, really matters. I think from my experience and exposure is a lot of people interview that have never been trained on interviewing. A lot of people that are interviewing are on the same pages. A lot of people just ad hoc it. And so you get you're not getting the best out of the interview and the best out of the candidate because of that. So you need to create a process. You need to teach the process. You need to have buy-in on the process, and you need to manage to the process. Because again, I think, I support startups from 2-person baby companies all the way up to 1,000+ employees. And I've seen all the growth but where I see the most mistakes is people not well trained in understanding what they need to get out of that interview to make the best hiring decision. I've seen lots of talent be passed on because the hiring manager had no clue and jumped to conclusions, or somebody on their team. And also, it's all about the candidate experience right now. That's so critical. And what makes for a very healthy candidate experience is a very thought through, thorough process. Just like your customer would feel on the customer side of customer acquisition, right? You want to put your best foot forward. You want to look positive. You want to look professional. You want to look like you have your stuff together. You want the same when it comes to acquiring talent. And 65% of candidates say a bad interview experience made them lose interest in a job opportunity. And again, we're in a candidate market. I believe in technology will be in a candidate market for some time, even if we have a downturn, because there still just is too much opportunity and not enough resources, especially with Gen Z all wanting to be their own entrepreneur and not have a boss and not work for a company. So you have to keep that in mind. Soft skills. I would say this is bar none one of the most critical out of all skills is soft skills. You really need to focus on it. I love Simon Sinek, but what he said, and I believe in this, is you don't hire for skills, you hire for attitude. You can always teach skills. And when he's talking skills here, I am interpreting he's saying kind of the technical skills, the absolute you need. It's really, you've got to hire in this market. You got to hire for aptitude, attitude, drive, resourcefulness, style, pace. All of those things really matter. Behavioral assessments, personality assessments. I'm a guru. I've studied and practiced. I know them all. Colby, Myers-Briggs, DISC, Taylor, Predictive Index, Acumax. I know them all. They all have different pluses and minuses. And a behavioral assessment is not meant to be the full-on decision making, but it certainly gives you some unbiased understanding of a applicant. And yes, I know a lot of people think they can, play the game and work the system, but I think they've gotten stronger and they're more savvy. But talent acquisition has become just as much of a big data play, and really truly using that data analysis to help make sound and ground decision making. But here's how you really should optimize if you're going to use behavioral assessments is everybody on the team has to be assessed. It can't just be new hires. It can't just be for teammates. It really needs to be the leaders too, because the leaders are the ones that are going to set the tone, the pace. Every company has a different leader. Every leader leads differently. And that sort of archetype is really the foundation of how a company will operate. So the leaders set the bar. Then you assess everyone else on the team. And within that, you're understanding how people work well together, how people show up. You're finding your gaps too, because some of the things is if you find a candidate that might be light on the hard skills that you need, but has the soft skills, especially say you have a group of 5 developers, but nobody's a really good communicator or documenter on that team. Maybe assessing them, you realize, oh, this developer actually loves to communicate and is a phenomenal writer. And so we're going to put them more heavily on the documentation side of things. This developer is more introverted and really stresses out when he gets disrupted throughout the day. So, you're learning. You can, yes, over time get to know people's natural tendencies, but I think a assessment will kind of speed that up and let you understand where people are, can sit where they're best suited. And then you want to create a benchmark. So once you find your gaps, once you've assessed the team, then you have a benchmark for each role, and that helps you kind of define the soft skills that you will be willing to look at versus perhaps some of the hard skills. Negotiating and extending an offer. They're no different, but a couple things I want to talk through here is this is not the market to lowball. You just can't. You've got to come in with your strongest offer, period. There's just too much competition to try to play that game. I don't think, and I don't see a lot of people doing that, but I think I just want to remind people right now in this market, you really, really have to come out strong. Never, ever, 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 if I tell you anything, do not extend just via email. I have seen so many development managers just try to do that, and it never really goes over well because it doesn't make the person feel special. You want to make them feel special. And unfortunately, especially the younger generation, they want to feel special. So you want to always present it formally. And whether, it's always a verbal. And if you can do a Zoom and personally see them or even do it in person, that's even better. But extending an offer is, it goes back to people's psychology. It's how you make somebody feel matters more than anything. If a candidate has 2 offers with 2 incredible companies and one just sends an offer through an email and one takes the time to extend it and share with them why they think they're the best fit and how much they would appreciate to have them on their team, that can be a game changer right there. And that is a big decision maker for that candidate. Don't wait to the end to understand what they desire. Every single time you're talking and interviewing with these candidates, you should be really thinking about what they want, right? Is it money? Is it more benefits? Is it more flexibility? Is it remote? You don't want surprises at the end of the game because hiring is always difficult. Hiring is very taxing. Hiring takes a lot of time out of your teammates' time. Everybody who's interviewing is a manager, a developer, a resource, right? And you want to be very particular with the time you spend. So it's not worthy if you wait to the end and then you have all these surprises. So you want to make sure, and that goes back to really kind of creating that formula. And then give a deadline. You always want to give a deadline in this market, but you want to make it fair. Maybe a week's time frame, but you don't want people to sit on offers. We've seen a lot lately because there's so much competition and there's so many people hiring that candidates are pushing for long-term deadlines. But I don't think that's fair to the company because the company can't keep interviewing and hiring in the fact if you do take it. So make it tight, make it fair so that you both can move on accordingly. Then closing. Closing is, onboarding. Onboarding is fundamentally how you start somebody is how they stay. So you have to really think through your onboarding process. You have to make sure they have time with their manager. You have to make sure they have the outline of the performance goals. Really, day one, you should be sitting them down, talking about what the true expectations are for the job, for their role, thinking through what you want them to accomplish 30, 60, 90. People, whether they love autonomy or not, people need direction. People love direction. If they didn't love direction, they'd probably just go out and be an entrepreneur themselves. So one of the reasons why they work for people is they want to be led down the golden path. They want to know, give me my marching orders and then let me shine. Especially the more younger generation, they want tons of autonomy. They want tons of room for creativity to get to the end result. They don't like to be micromanaged, and they want to know the expectations and then let them go be and let them produce. And then another thing is, again, if you see 53% for onboarding is culture and values. Culture and values are more critical than ever. They are not just the words you put on the wall or something you occasionally talk about. It is all about meaning. And I know sometimes that can be frustrating because you're like, we just need to build this and sell it and do good. But, it's slowing down to take 2 steps forward. And then one of the things I am a huge believer in is you've learned the landscape, you understand what's going on in the market, you understand now how to build sort of a talent playbook, you've onboarded, you've got the hire. Now you have to think through every time. So I've talked to so many managers, and what they say is every time you bring one new person onto a team, it disrupts the entire team dynamic. And disrupt doesn't mean negative. It can be very, very positive, but it's going to change the dynamic of that team. And depending on where you're at in the company, how startup you are you mid-market or mid-size or mid-growth, you have to think through the different teams. So how, when you're a super small startup, you start off with one big team. And then as you grow, you get into silos, into little packs of teams. But this, I would highly recommend all of you look up Bruce Tuckman's methodology. It's been around since the 60s. They teach it in MIT and Harvard and everywhere. But it's all about the forming, storming, norming, and performing as teams. And it's all about the phases that teams go through when new people are introduced to the team. So the forming stage is change, adaptability, empathy. So it's new and you're trying to kind of size out everybody and how's this work and how do they work. Then there's the storming, where it's a little bit conflict management, problem solving, communicating. So you get people who are starting to get comfortable, maybe sort of air how they feel a little bit more. You have some stepping on toes because you don't really know where the lines cross. Then you have norming, where it's okay, we've gotten to know each other. We now are crystal clear who does what and where and how. Now it's let's be creative, let's motivate, and you're kind of really gelling as a team in that norming phase. And then performing, you're totally a true optimal team, and you're focused on time management more than anything. But then you've gone through all the phases, the team's gelling, and then you hire a new person, and then you kind of start the process all over again. So I would recommend learning a little bit about this and teaching your team. There's some fun activities out there that you can do that helps your team understand it's normal when you have new hires and there's a little bit of conflict or a little bit of rub, or there's some challenge to getting to know and understand how people work. And then I'm going to leave you with this. I have 2 more slides, that's it. But I truly believe that the future of talent is truly using tools to understand people. We are all, and we have been going down this more, holistic mindfulness, connection, people, one, people are we really care about who we are, how we operate together, empathy as a team. So I would say good managers utilize personality and behavioral assessments with greater frequencies than bad managers. And I think what it does is more than ever, and I've done this so much in my team, and it has profoundly changed the way my team operates, is it sort of allows everybody to be a little vulnerable, and it helps connect people more. It helps people understand and not take things so personal. So you have a lot of compassion for one another. Enneagram is my favorite assessment. I'm a huge fan. I've seen it work magics in so many of my companies. And one thing I would say is, behavioral assessments, I come back to it because I just wanted to let you know how powerful they are, is it's really not about if somebody can do the job or not. It's more about how can we all work together in a more cohesive, happy, fulfilling manner, because we're all different. We're all wired different. And so when you know that about each other, it helps you understand each other more, and it makes the gel of a team so much stronger. So I would highly recommend implementing some of that. And then I'll leave you with this. When is a good time to hire an internal recruiter? I would say sooner than later. 76% of new hires stay over a year, but 45 of them leave. Almost half of them leave within 3 years. So there's always backfilling, always rehiring to do, let alone the growth and scale that you need. This market takes about 3 times the amount of effort to fill jobs, and the average time to fill has almost doubled. So it's never too soon to hire an internal recruiter. And my recommendation, if you can find an internal recruiter that's really strong in tech, because generally if they're strong in tech, they can pretty much recruit all other roles. But it's really hard for somebody who's not as strong in tech to recruit tech, and tech will be the bulk of your hiring for a good while. So that is something I would really focus on. And the best use for agency recruiters like me is, for your more difficult, your more challenging, your more timely, your more important roles that just take that extra digging, that network that you may not have. And so, there's a place for us all, and we all work well together, but it's not realistic for startups to use agency recruiters for all their hires. And what I usually tell my baby startups is, if you utilize me for one key hire, generally that one key hire will have a network to bring other folks in, so that you're not just reliant on an agency recruiter to do your hiring. And that's it. Any questions? Ooh.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Melissa. That was really cool. So we're going to switch up a little bit to the questions from the audience. So I have some here that I'll just read out to you, okay? But you should also be able to read them. So question from Bob Dare, of the 38% that are retired. So this is from the beginning of your presentation.
Yeah.
Did they truly stop? Will they be coming back in the next year or 3? I've seen that many people do not have enough funds to retire, so 38% sounds high to stop working.
I agree, Bob. It's a hard question, because I think some of them, you're quite right, were kind of forced into early retirement. I think you're going to see some of them come back, but they may come back in different ways, like more consulting versus full-time. But there's also this, there's such a different mindset too, from baby boomers to Gen X's and millennials, that it's hard, right? So I think some of that factors into them deciding just on early retirement. I'm hopeful because their wise with wisdom is, there's a lot of, you can pick them up and do a lot of consulting work, and they can come in and kind of give that wisdom and that perspective that us younger entrepreneurs need to have. So we'll see. I don't truly know the answer, but I'm hopeful that there'll be some opportunity to capitalize on their wisdom.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Going
Yeah.
up to the next one from Hirsch M. How do you decide between hiring or outsourcing for a particular job function?
I love that. So every company is going to be different. I would recommend, like, if you okay, so there's people that, especially with tech, and I'm going to kind of focus on tech. With tech, I would say it's really critical to have a good architect on your team, or somebody who knows that can direct the outsourced team. I have done so much cleanup from bad outsourced projects, and it's not because it was outsourced. It was because there was such a breakdown in communication between perhaps the founder or two that weren't tech to the outsourced company that was tech. They're not in it enough to know the nuances. So you need that middle person to know the nuances, to be able to translate it back and forth. If you have that, then I think it's very easy to outsource a lot of your just bulk development strategy.
That makes total sense. I like that answer, actually.
Yeah.
I'm learning so much today too, so it's great.
Good. I'm happy.
All right, question from Laura B. Let's say there are two candidates. One was referred by an employee and the other one applied through LinkedIn. Both are great candidates, but the second one, the one that applied through LinkedIn, has all the hard skills the role needs. What should the hiring manager take into consideration when selecting between such profiles?
This is a judgment call. So much of recruiting is a judgment call and a personal decision. For me, I want to pick who's best for the role, irregardless of other factors, irregardless of their race, demographic, years, age, whatever. But when it comes to hard skills, I think what's really, really critical is they have the soft skills with it. So the soft skills is going to be the attitude, the drive. 50%, you have to look at as 50-50. 50% hard skill, 50% soft skill. So if that girl that was a referral has, 50% soft skill, but less on the hard, and the person with hard skill has 50-50, it's a formula. You kind of have to, I always look at hiring a little bit as a formula, and it's what makes sense. Sometimes it's really nice to hire somebody that's referred because, you have a little bit of that buy-in, but sometimes if they're not the happiest employee, they can collaborate together and make for unhappy work environment too. So like there's a balance of all of that you have to kind of work through.
Gotcha. Makes total sense. Okay, next up. Startups are often rushing to fill positions. How do you go through the four phases, I believe, of the Bruce Tuckman methodology, quick enough to understand whether or not you've brought together the right team or if you're setting yourself up for failure?
So I feel like a little bit of a broken record with this, but I sincerely believe that behavioral assessments help so much in understanding that kind of forming and storming time frame. You can go through those quick or they can take long. It depends on how big your team is. It depends on how many you have. But what I've done is, even my newer team, we all sat down, we all collaborated, and honestly, the behavioral assessment stuff, they love it. They love it. My team is never more engaged than when we're doing that kind of stuff. And believe it or not, the developers, and believe it or not, it's the introverted like men that typically don't love this are the ones eating it up the most. But when you allow people to understand each other and see each other in a different lens, it helps that forming and storming time period. But also, even just having a lunch and learn or one lunch and learn, talking about how teams form and how you're going to go through a forming, a storming, a norming, and a performing, it like right there causes ease with anxiety, and it helps them understand maybe if there's some friction going on. So just even talking about it and bringing them aware of it can like solve a lot of things.
I will say that Endeavor has also used, like about a month and a half ago, such behavioral tools, and it was also a game changer for us.
It's a game
So,
changer.
yeah, I
Game
highly
changer.
recommend to everyone in the audience to get something like that. It's definitely worth the investment.
Yeah.
Okay, last question I have here. If anyone else in the audience wants to share more, just go for it. But this is the last one I see. So, from Dubrashka Guerrero, how do you think companies are applying the reading through a VC? I've seen a lot of turndowns of potential staff members because of experience or lack of degree.
How do you think companies are applying the reading through AVC? What's the reading? Or just like VCs turning them down because they're not the perfect on writing?
I
Like,
believe that is
okay.
I think that's what the person's asking. Yeah.
I know. Here's the deal. I think in past markets, you had that opportunity to hold out for the best of the best. It's like my husband and I tease all the time because he works for a tech startup out of Miami, and they are very bullish on we have to have perfect and we have to have top degrees and we have to have top people. And I'm like, I get it. I hear you. But are you going to go months and months not getting it? Or are you going to get somebody that has the aptitude, the attitude, and the right behavior, and you can teach and train them? By the time you take 90 days to teach them the hard skill, you now have somebody that is in full gear versus taking 90 days to find somebody on paper that says all the right things. And then you're still waiting another 90 days to figure out if they even fit. So we just don't have the luxury of time. Like, here's the deal. You saw the amount of companies that have gotten funded. There is not enough talent. There's not enough talent to go around. There just isn't. But I will say the saving grace right now is with the market turning a little bit, and this is all of you startups, please get excited. But I do think this is a very prime opportunity to capitalize on a lot of these big companies having layoffs. So every big company from PayPal to Zoom to Netflix to Google to Facebook, they're all slashing about 10%. So right now is actually an opportune time to kind of staff up if you can.
Which takes us to the next question, also from Dubrashka, which is very as a follow up to this, right? How can you negotiate a good salary being a startup while maintaining a good offer and possibly getting the right candidate? So I guess like, and this is something that we hear a lot, right? Like, how can I compete with such crazy salaries out there?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll let you answer.
So again, that's why it goes back to in your first screening, you want to understand what's really important to them. And it's up to you to paint that picture for them, because they may say money and they may be saying that right off, but when you really get to know them and you understand, oh, they're about to have a baby, or oh, they had somebody pass, or oh, they have some medical condition or something, like you learn their story, you can use the other tools in your tool chest. And by the way, having different and creative fringe benefits have been going a long way with the competing of salary. But at the end of the day, it is incredibly difficult to only compete on money. It's if you're a smaller company, you may always lose unless you can find those nuggets of what really is going to matter to that person.
Yeah, I hear that, and I think that's the only way you can compete. Because if you don't have the money to do it, you're gonna have to think about something else that is important to them.
Yeah,
Okay.
I actually, a lot of technologists, real quick, if
Yeah, of
you,
course.
anybody that can give a 4-week work week or something like that, you would get a developer that would be willing to take a lot less money for that. So it's like
Great
the
point.
exchange, you're trading something for something.
Yeah, that's a great point. I don't think a lot of people see that yet in the market, or like think of that
It's
as an
hard.
option.
It's
The
hard.
four
Okay, if you
day.
could do that,
Yeah.
that's, you know,
Okay, I have one other question from Dubrashka. What do you think about remote overseas job offers? I've seen tons of companies hiring remote staff in other countries to save up money. Endeavor has also seen a lot of this, so I want to
I
hear
think
from you
I
on
think that's
this.
amazing. I think, I think we are going more global than ever before, and I think we're going to keep going that direction. And I think there's incredible talent out there, especially in the Latinx communities. Ukrainians right now are phenomenal developers, and there's so much displacement. I think hiring overseas is key. The only thing I would recommend, though, is you have to have that translator in between, because with that, the sentiment and the nuances get lost in translation, right? So that's the only thing you have to really think about. But if you have that right person who can sit in the middle, that really knows what they're talking about on both ends, sees the business perspective, knows the tech perspective, can be that advocate, then you're golden. I would hire offshore all the time. The only reason why they ever don't go that well is lost in translation, right?
Yeah, that makes total sense. I don't think a lot of people think about that, like the lost in translation part. Sometimes even like lost in culture, even,
Yeah,
right? Like cultural habits and practices and how people communicate, not like just the language, but as individuals, right, can be very different. And if you don't understand how the other plays, um, it can be very tricky.
yeah, it can be very
Awesome.
tricky. And every company has like the little nuances that when you're trying to give direction to build something, it's so obvious that you don't see it, you don't think to say it because
Yeah.
you're blinded to the obvious, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's a wrap on the questions. Thank you, Melissa, for
Right.
sharing insights, tools, resources, and best practices on hiring for scale. I'm sure everyone in attendance will be walking away with a deeper understanding on where they are missing the mark on hiring and many resources to hire more effectively and efficiently. So, the Endeavor team would like to thank the audience for attending. And we would like to also thank our sponsor, Dell Technologies, for your continued support. The master classes are going to be returning next month on August 23rd with an investor relations session. So you can learn more on endeavormasterclasses.eventbrite.com. And that is a wrap for today. Thank you so much, Melissa.
Bye. Thank you.